Good evening and welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. If you could please rise and join us from, hang on a second here, I almost forgot. If I could get the scouts from pack 415.
419.
Yes, 419, up to the dais. These gentlemen will lead us in the pledge. I'll just give you that and then you're ready afterwards too.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome, thank you. If you guys want to now turn about 90 degrees and face out that way and go ahead and introduce yourselves. Well, you don't have to, you can kind of be spread out, fan out this way. Somebody take charge out there. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, but I'm not going out there.
My name is Roland Dyberg. I am in Pack 419. I go to Morris By Elementary.
My name is Claudia. My name is Parker, and I go to Sand Creek Elementary.
And like they said, they're from 419. We're working on the Building a Better World adventure, which is what brings us here tonight to learn a little bit about government.
Awesome. Thank you very much. They met with the city manager and myself before the earlier this evening, and they had a lot of really good questions. I thought, oh, I've never had that question before. Thanks for being here. Thanks for leading the pledge. All right. Next thing on our agenda is to adopt this evening's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, how about the roll call?
How about we do the roll call first? You're going to retrain me. You know, I'm just, wow. How about calling roll?
Councilmember Kraskowiak.
Here.
Councilmember Ray-Rauer.
Here.
Councilmember Novak.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler.
Here.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Here.
Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. Thank you. We could have moved that after adopting the agenda. We haven't adopted the agenda yet.
That's true.
All right. But maybe we should do that now, though.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Novak to adopt the agenda. Is there any corrections or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. We're up to the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Carlson.
motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Carlson and a second by Ray-Rauer. Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And those minutes are adopted. We have 4 items on our consent agenda this evening. And the first one is item 2 on this evening's agenda, and that's to approve final payment to Veit and Company Incorporated for Project 23-3 Sanitary Sewer Lining. And the project was under the contract. The project was under the contract amount because of reduced quantities. The contract did not meet all of the quantities estimated within the original bid documents. So we're looking to approve final payment to Veit and Company Incorporated in the amount of $91,392.70 for Project 23-3 Sanitary Sewer Lining. The next item on our consent agenda, which is item 3 tonight, is to approve the 2024 business license renewals. All of the license applications are renewals, and as indicated on the tabulation that we've got in our packet, most license renewals are complete, with the exception of those businesses missing the indicated items. Certain licenses, such as tobacco and massage therapists, are approved by staff and are not part of the attachment. The renewals were processed during the 2024 fee schedule. All missing items are expected to be received by Friday, December 15th, 2023. So we're looking to approve the 2024 business license renewals as listed on the attached tabulation, contingent upon receipt of additional information as noted and subject to compliance with all city codes. The next item on our consent agenda, which is item 4 on our agenda tonight, is to accept as an informational item corporate officer changes for business licenses. Representatives from the following business license holders have notified the city of changes in their corporate owners or officers or owners, and they're required to let us know. So the business license renewal applications indicated that the following corporate officers are new. At Buffalo Wild Wings on River Rapids Drive, it's John Bowie. At the Coon Rapids VFW Post 9625, it's Nathan Morgan. And at Target, 3300 124th Avenue, it's Morgan Burkell. That's provided for information only. Our fourth and final item on our consent agenda this evening is to adopt Resolution 23-126, accepting a donation of a $20,000 grant from the Koss Family Foundation via the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation. The city has received grant funds from the Koss Family Foundation in previous years that were used to purchase rescue equipment for the fire department. This grant was not designated for a specific purpose, and staff will review and make a determination as to how to best utilize the grant funds. So we're looking to adopt Resolution 23-126, accepting grant donation of $20,000.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Novak,
move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
motion by Novak and a second by Geisler to move the consent agenda. Is there any discussion or questions? I just wanted to make mention that the Koss Family Foundation has been donating funds to us since 2016. But back then, they supported their police. Sorry. Now everything goes to fire. I don't know why. We had $1,500 from the Koss family in 2016 for the K-9 program. And then 2018, 2018, they had $10,000 towards the purchase of a Swiftwater rescue team equipment. And then also towards the police department, they had a donation that year, but that one is gone. Technology, sorry. But then they've subsequent years of 2021, 2022, and now 2023, and it's been $20,000 grants for our fire department. So it's been really generous, and we really appreciate it.
Mayor,
Mr. Stemwedel.
Just quick clarification, this year's grant actually is open. They didn't specify exactly how we needed to spend it. They just asked that we receive it, and so that's why tonight we're just asking council to receive the grant, and then we'll determine more than likely some sort of capital, rescue equipment, that sort of thing.
Oh, well, okay, but, I see. In previous years, purchased rescue equipment for the fire department. I leapt to a conclusion that wasn't correct. I'm
Yeah.
really sorry, police. Maybe you'll get some money this
Maybe
year.
we may share. We may.
The opportunity is
The opportunity is there. All right, I'm sorry. Any other discussion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember.
I did want to make a point on that Koss Family Foundation as well. I did some research on that, and then they've been contributing to the city for a long, long time. But not just to this city. That philanthropic organization is huge. It's just tens of millions of dollars year over year from that organization, that foundation, so we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I did the research and read it as well, and it was very interesting. Sounds like an incredible family, an incredible guy. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the consent agenda is adopted. Next is to hold Truth-In-Taxation public hearing and consider resolutions 23-124 and 23-125, adopting the 2024 budget and tax levy. Mr. Stemwedel, how would you like to start this?
Mayor and council, Ms. Ashley Hanson, our finance director, and I will provide you with the Truth-In-Taxation presentation. So this presentation is required by state statute, and the whole idea is to present information on what's in the budget and what's included in the levy before the city council takes formal action on that. So the sequence of events tonight is we'll provide that presentation, certainly can answer any questions that council might have, and then we do need to open the floor in a public hearing format for anybody to offer comments on the 2024 budget. And the council may close that hearing and then take action on the budget and levy subsequently. So with that, I'll jump into the presentation. The public portion of the city's budget process begins in August, although for several months prior to that, staff has been working on it, boiling things down into a manageable format to present to council. That preliminary budget was presented on August 8th. Staff uses that conversation to come back to the city council in September with a preliminary levy, at which point the council adopts that preliminary levy and can lower the levy thereafter, but cannot increase it. That information is provided to the county, who uses that levy information in their parcel-specific truth and taxation notices. So if you're a property owner in Coon Rapids, you would have received something in the mail from Anoka County that had the value of your property and your estimated taxes for 2024 and how that compared to 2023. Not only for the city, but for all the taxing jurisdictions within the county. It also includes information on when each of those jurisdictions is holding their truth and taxation hearing, which ours is tonight. And so it gives taxpayers the opportunity to present information to their boards, again, prior to any formal decision being made. Tonight we'll have that hearing, and we'll ask council to consider the levy and budget, and we'll certify that to the county and the state for property taxes payable in 2024. When we start our budget process at the city, we really tend to focus on a few very specific things. In the case of most municipalities, what we're most concerned with is addressing our core services within the community. So it's the infrastructure, the water, the sewer, the streets, the police, the fire, public works, you name it. All those things that are really critical to what we do and provide to the city. Every year we have to respond to different things within the budget. Some economic stressors are always included, and so we need to respond to those budget needs appropriately. Certainly the wish list and the want list of things we would like to do or could like to do is much bigger than what we boil it down to even before we bring it to council, and then pare down more so after that, and really focusing on what are those high impact mission critical things that we need to fund. And of course, we look into the long term, especially with our infrastructure and our capital equipment. These are things that are very expensive, take a lot of time to plan for, and we really try to smooth out the peaks and valleys of the costs of those things over time so that the taxpayer has a pretty steady bill each year, and that we're not surprised by big costs and having to place that burden on our taxpayers. In the 2024 budget, there were a number of things that impacted what is being presented to council. The first being local government aid, which is a state program that has kind of come and gone and come back again. So a couple of years ago, we received over $1.1 million in local government aid. And due to some formula things that I won't get into and some funding mechanisms at the state, that actually went down to zero for 2023, which was a pretty incredible impact to the city budget, on top of a lot of other things that were going on at the time, like 8% inflation and so forth. The good news is in 2024, they changed the formula and the funding mechanism for local government aid, and we're estimating $821,000 will come back to the city. We are planning over time to reduce the general fund's reliance on local government aid. We made a split this year and intend in future years to lower the amount that's put into the general fund, which is primarily where operations come from, where we fund staff and kind of the day-to-day things that the city does. Putting more into capital, some of those things that are out in the longer term that we can absorb changes into that local government aid program, which always seems to change depending on what's happening at the state. It hasn't necessarily been a reliable source of income for any city, but certainly not for us. Inflationary pressures do continue. You know, over the past year, we sort of lag behind when we're planning for budgets and what's happening. Things that we were thinking about over a year ago are coming to fruition today, and so it's sometimes hard to predict what those might be. Certainly motor fuels, utility costs, supply costs, wages, those are things that have been running at a high level now for a couple of years. Are tamping down somewhat is the good news as we're going to 2024, but we are catching up to a lot of those 7, 8, 9% inflation increases that we're seeing year over the last couple of years. Certainly, Coon Rapids has been impacted by some slower economic development and growth. A lot of this is attributable to things like interest rates and the cost of development and construction. There's just not as many things in the hopper, so to speak, looking into 2024 as there were, say, going into 2022 and even 2023. And we are still kind of catching up in 2023. We relied on some one-time revenue that was generated by some federal programs that we had some sort of cash, so to speak, that we could use to fill the gap of local government aid and some of those inflationary pressures. Well, in the long term, you need your levy to sustain those revenues over time, and so we are catching up to that into 2024, and I would anticipate into 2025. A few more budgetary impacts that we're seeing next year. There have been some changes to election laws that are are creating more costs for municipalities, and we're seeing that we had to increase the number of election judges and supplies and wages for the election judges in 2024, which we expect to be a very busy election cycle. And so we had to increase what we already had budgeted by $42,000. And so each year, we have elections every other year. We try to budget about 50% of the costs and carry over what we can so that it's an even cost each year. Well, next year we had to bump that up. In the realm of police, we are anticipating a few new programmatic things, first being the Anoka County SWAT program. So this is an opportunity for city police officers to participate in a county-wide initiative that really would provide some specialized training and expertise for our staff, and also provide some opportunities for them to grow professionally. So we're excited about that, and actually is an item on your agenda tonight that would firm that decision up. There's some additional dollars for training and funding, and then finally, the state did provide some one-time funding for public safety purposes, and given where we're at from a wage inflationary standpoint in the police world especially, where we're seeing wages increase significantly and sort of challenged to try to keep our staffing numbers up, we are using some of that funding for both some one-time capital purchase and some of those staffing wage considerations that I just mentioned. In the world of fire, we are expecting to purchase a $924,000 fire engine, which the council ordered a couple months ago now, just recently. And so we budgeted that in two parts, one in 2024 for the chassis and the other in 2025 for the body. We expect it will take 2 years to receive delivery of that truck, which actually helps us when we're looking at the purchase of that. And we are expecting, although there is still a conversation to be had around exactly how to finance that, we had anticipated initially equipment certificates, but based on some of that discussion we had, we'll come back to you in the first quarter of next year and talk about exactly how we're going to go forward with that. So that's just the way it was in the budget book. In the world of transportation, we will continue our street reconstruction program. We have 2.9 miles of street that we're going to reconstruct, which is actually a smaller program than most years. We had to sort of pull back on some of our street reconstruction for a number of reasons, primarily the cost of construction, and we have a number of other projects going on in the city that we're trying to manage our debt load as best we can. We are expecting to move forward on the Coon Creek Trail Pedestrian Bridge, which is the good news, predominantly funded by outside sources. Only a small portion would be expected of the city. Otherwise, we did receive some Metropolitan Council funds through the federal government, and also the state legislature awarded us with a significant contribution in their last legislative session. And then more into the general maintenance category for street is our steel coating program and overlays. This is the ongoing things you see in your street if they're coming down and laying a coat down, or sometimes we just reclaim some of that pavement and put it right back down, make it look like new. It doesn't last as long as a full reconstruction, but certainly is an important part of our maintenance program. In the Park Improvement Fund, we do expect to move forward with the Coon Creek Trail, which is $1.5 million. That was the last remaining portion of the park bond referendum that we've been working on for the last, getting close to 8-9 years now. And this is the last remaining project, and there's been some progress made in the last 12 to 18 months that will allow us to move forward on some construction with that next year. We are expecting to start phase 1 of a lighting project at the soccer complex that's in total closer to $800,000 to $900,000 project. The lighting there is 25 years old or so and is in disrepair and needs to be replaced sooner than later, and so that is what is anticipated. We're starting at least the first phase of improvements to Al Flynn Park. We attributed $300,000 for right now what the Parks Commission is looking at as more of a playground improvement, but that is, I would say, open for discussion in terms of what those improvements look like into 2024 and beyond, but we wanted to put some money into the capital budget for Al Flynn Park improvements because we know it's going to be a multi-step and multi-year progress there. Finally, under parks, more park improvements. There's a number of ball field related things that they're anticipating there. I know in particular, there's the lack of a 13U baseball field that is of good quality in the city, and so that would be one of the improvements there, and a couple of other things in relation to that. Finally, I mentioned capital fund replacement equipment. So each year we look at our large equipment, think dump trucks, fire trucks, police vehicles, things of that nature. And we have a 10-year plan. And really what we try to do is slot those vehicles in a replacement cycle that makes sense. But we don't always replace the vehicles. We get to year 10, we look at a dump truck, we look at a police car. Well, not a police car, they don't make it 10 years. But equipment is on its own cycle. And sometimes we decide vehicles can make it another year or two, and sometimes it's the other way where, things have been difficult, a lot of maintenance costs, and we move it up. But nonetheless, we look at over a 10-year cycle, and for 2024, we're anticipating, as I mentioned, that first installment for the fire engine, one new dump truck, which we're really trying to keep it to one new dump truck a year when we can. It won't always be that case, but it's much easier to absorb in the capital fund when it's one. Sometimes it'll be two. We replace a number of police vehicles each year, and so a total of $515,000, but that's a number of squads, unmarked vehicles, and so forth. And the one that's a little more unique for 2024 is we are replacing our financial software package. We have been under the same software for, I think, nearly 20 years now. And we work with local government information systems under a consortium who've been using this product for that 20 years. And it's been updated, but it's time for it to go. And the whole group is moving away from that financial software package. And so we were sort of left with the choice of going with the local government information systems recommended product or going on our own. We ultimately decided to go on our own. We thought it was more cost effective and better for our specific needs in the city of Coon Rapids. And so we're expecting that to kick off yet. Well, not necessarily this month, but pretty soon into 2024. And are pretty excited about that. In the long run, actually switching to that financial package will save us money as its annual costs are significantly less than the current package that we're using. And with that, I'm going to pass it to my cohort over here. Oh, I did miss one, didn't I? Thank you. Whew, I'm just getting tired of talking, I guess. A couple other things that I'll mention under the personnel services. So in our general fund, which is the largest fund of our budget, about 78% of that fund is made up of staff costs. It's the wages, benefits, you name it, related to people. And of course, the people do the work that we need every day. And so the cost of living increase is included in that. Right now, we're working through the finality of some contracts that'll be coming before our city council here. Maybe one as soon as a couple of weeks from now, but the rest probably in January. Slight increase to health insurance premiums of 4.2% to the city budget. We actually thought this was a pretty good result for 2024. We had a cap that was higher than that, but we had a good experience rating within our consortium group. And we tend to split about 50-50 of the premium increase with employees and the employer contribution. We did get some good news under workers' compensation. Those premiums are moderating a little bit. Partly it's because there have been such large increases over the last several years, and in part because the state is stepping up with some funding related to police and fire PTSD-related claims that are helping those. So we expect that to flatten out or increase a lot less than they have been when we were getting, 25%, 20% increases. We are assuming not 100% of staff costs will be attributed or achieved next year, so we're taking a little bit of vacancy savings in reducing the levy as a result of that, just because we know we don't have people here 100% of the time, and so we're not budgeting for 100% of it. And now I know I'm passing the baton to Ashley Hansen, our finance director.
Thank you, Mr. Stemwedel. All right, so continuing on with budgetary impacts, we have about a $575,000 increase in our levy-supported debt for 2024. Most of this, $550,000 of it, is related to new debt issues that were completed in 2022 and 2023 for street reconstruction projects. The rest of our debt service levies are comparable to previous years. All in all, it's about 11.7% increase over 2023. Though our utility funds are not supported by a levy, they make up a big portion of our total budget. And are designed, they're meant to be self-supported by user charges. Included in 2024 are assumptions that all three utilities will have a rate increase. 8% is assumed in the water fund, 11% in the sewer fund, and 5% in the storm drain fund. The water and the sewer rates were included in the rate study completed in 2022 that was built off of a 10-year capital improvement plan with the goal of making sure that we have financial sustainability and that we're continuing to invest in our critical infrastructure. The storm drain fund, we assumed a 5% increase, but are planning to do a more thorough rate study like we did with water and sewer in 2024. We have some new state mandates as well as some anticipated larger projects coming up that we want to make sure that that fund continues to be self-supporting as well. As far as expenditures, all three of those funds have some pretty large capital improvements planned for 2024. The water fund, we're replacing $4 million worth of water mains, $1.1 million of various well pump and rehab projects. We've got some equipment replacement, and then have funding in there to complete construction of the new water tower and removal of the old tower. The sewer fund saw a nearly 8% increase in disposal charges from Met Council over 2023. We also have street reconstruction and $650,000 for a lift station rehab. Storm drain fund, we have costs related to street reconstruction as well as some other infrastructure improvements. All right. Total budgeted revenue for 2024 is proposed to be $95,094,965. This includes proceeds from bond issuances and sale of capital assets. Funds that are supported by the levy include the general fund, our debt service fund, and some of the capital project funds. Overall, the increase is just under $10 million and 11.74% over the current amended budget. Other notable changes, so in our capital project fund includes $7 million worth of intergovernmental revenue. $6 million of that is for the Coon Creek Trail pedestrian bridge, which is a one-time revenue. And then we've got some MSA dollars for maintenance, and then the local government aid that we talked about a little bit ago. Utility fund revenues include those proposed rate increases that we just mentioned. Total budgeted expenditures are proposed at just over $100 million. It's about $800,000 increase, or 0.81% over our current amended budget. Notable changes, so in the general fund is a $2.5 million increase. 1.8 of that is related to those personal service costs, so for the people that provide the services to our residents. In our special revenue funds, we are anticipating, we included increased funding for housing loan programs. So due to the current market with interest rates, we've seen a higher utilization with those programs the last couple of years, and we're anticipating that to continue into 2024. We have a decrease in the capital project fund. So we have those larger one-time projects with the Coon Creek Trail and some other things, but in 2023 we included funding for the fire station that's nearing completion, so that's not included in 2024. Water fund, there's a $430,000 increase in interest for debt service payments. There's some increase in utilities, and then also we're seeing significant increases in the cost of chemicals to treat the water. Sewer fund, as I mentioned, we've got the $340,000 increase for disposal charges. After allocating grants, program fees, and other non-property tax revenue to the appropriate services, the amount left requiring tax support is $35,580,233. 79% of this goes towards our general fund at $27,962,405. 15% goes towards our debt levies. We touched on why that's increasing on a previous slide. And 6% goes towards various capital funds. This includes our park improvement, equipment replacement, street maintenance, and then our tree boulevard fund. All right, our HRA tax levy is proposed to stay the same as in previous years. Our tax rate, we have a slight increase in the tax rate, up from 35.158 in 2023. And the tax rate is a key factor in property tax calculation, as well as need-based formulas such as LGA or local government aid and fiscal disparities. The tax rate for purposes of residents at home, the tax rate is calculated by taking the city levy divided by the total value of all the property within the city. So that's, we call that the tax capacity or tax base. And then that tax rate is then multiplied by the value of each individual parcel to determine each parcel's share of property taxes. All right. This graph and chart here just shows historical tax levy increases over the last 10 years. So our proposed tax levy for 2024 calls for a 5.9% increase in the general fund portion of the levy and a 6.8% overall compared to 2023. If you look at the 10-year average, we're around 4.5% for both the general fund levy and the levy as a total. Okay. This graph shows the change in our city tax rate. So as you can see, since 2013, we've had a 25% decrease in that tax rate. Generally speaking, the lower the tax rate, the lower taxes that are applied to the parcel. So a lower tax rate is good for residents. For 2024, our net tax capacity, or that tax base, increased 3.8 million or 4.8%, largely due to increases in commercial, industrial, and apartment properties. Residential properties as a whole remained flat. So there was a shift there with the tax burden from residential to those other types of properties. All right, so our tax rate, here's a chart that just kind of compares where we're at amongst our neighboring cities in Anoka County. So our tax rate here puts us about 9th among 20 cities. We're sitting right in the middle. All right. Since individual properties vary so much with characteristics for purposes of calculating or showing the tax impact, we're going to use the median single value home in Coon Rapids. So the median value home increased just $300 in value, or a 0.1%, which created a slight reduction in the homestead exclusion. And then, so their total taxable value increased $327. So we take that market value and multiply it by rates that were set by the state legislature to get our tax capacity. So there's a slight increase there, and then we apply our city tax rate. So the median value home, based on the proposed levy, would see an overall increase of $45 on the city portion. This equates to $3.75 more a month. So the median home would pay $85.83 total for city services. Okay. This graph shows that similar comparison with our tax rates applied to the median value home. So if you took our median value home and you took it and you plopped it into another city, this shows what they would pay in taxes based on that value. So again, we're 9th among the 20 in the group here. All right. For City of Coon Rapids specifically, that $85.83, so this shows where that goes. So our median value home pays less than a cell phone bill or a cable bill, and they're getting 24/7 police and fire coverage with the Fulton Fire Department. They have access to a wide array of recreational amenities, the parks and trails, programming. They get the streets maintained, snow plowing, and then, so really, it's really getting a good deal for what you're paying a month. And then the graph on the right here would be applicable to really any property, just to show, you can see based on what you're paying, where your dollars are going. All right. All right, and this here shows the breakdown between the different jurisdictions. So we as a city are not the only ones who you're paying property taxes to. So this is based off of current information. 35% of every dollar would go towards the school district, 34% towards the city, 27% towards the county, and then 4% is the other, like Met Council and any other special taxing districts. All right, we do on our website have a shortened budget and brief version, as well as the full detailed budget document available for the public to view. And that concludes our presentation, so we're happy to stand for any questions after the public hearing.
Scouts, it's hard to make this stuff exciting, isn't it? Anybody have any questions? At this time. All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. Very detailed. I like the that other graphic, breaking it down to the month, and that was kind of a clever one. If we don't have any other questions, then we should probably go to the public hearing. Yes. All right. Bum, bum. Okay. So at this point, if you are here to address the city council for the Truth-In-Taxation public hearing, now is your time. I'll open the Truth-In-Taxation public hearing. Just please come up to the mic and give us your name and address and share your thoughts. Anybody here for the Truth-In-Taxation public hearing? This is not out of the ordinary. Yeah. Mr. Stemwell? Oh, you're a taxpayer in town, sure, come on up.
We do advertise the opportunity for folks if they want to participate remotely to join us on Zoom. I just wanted to point out that there are no attendees on the Zoom meeting either, and so I don't anticipate any comments through that platform. So.
All right. Well, if there, then with that, I will close the Truth-In-Taxation public hearing. Anybody here for that? We'll close that and reserve this to council. Great presentation. Thank you so much. This is so much work and it involves so much of the staff planning for the year. It involves what are we going to be able to do? What are we going to be able to replace? What are the priorities of the city? What are the priorities of the council? They all have to line up, and it's just a very involved process.
Your Honor?
And Councilmember Novak?
I was just going to say, boys, if you thought that was hard to listen to, imagine having to write it.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler.
Yeah, again, thank you to Ms. Hanson and all staff, because they start working, you know, they're going to start working probably in February, March to start thinking, and May they get working on it. So it's a big job, but we work to make sure that any dollar that we're spending, you know, bringing in from a tax perspective, is going to serve the community. And how do we ensure that what are we doing is making a positive effort and an effect to the city, and that we want to keep our buildings, our parks, our roads in good quality. We don't want to let them to deteriorate to the point where then there's this huge, big expense, you know, that and you can't kind of work yourself out of. So I commend our staff for being able to make sure that what we're doing is thinking ahead, doing the basic work of keeping and maintaining everything that we've got, and then, like we also said, our general fund is the people, and that is a good, huge part of our budget, and it's the people of the city who work for the city that drive a lot of our success and really do the great things for the residents of our community. So, thanks for all your hard work.
All right. I thought maybe there'd be a motion
Oh,
in there somewhere.
well, Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 23-124, adopting the 2024 tax levy. Can I do them both together? Okay, and then I will also make the motion to approve the Resolution 23-125, adopting the 2024 budget.
Second.
We have a motion by Geisler and a second by Carlson. All right. Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac.
I'd just like to make a comment, kind of echoing what Councilmember Geisler just said about all the work that goes into this. And not only thank staff and everyone that's done that and our finance director, but also the council. I mean, a lot of this comes to us. You know, we look at this and we're really trying to smooth out the big spikes so there's not double-digit tax increases for the city of Coon Rapids, and I think we did a good job with that this year. If you look at your property tax statement from Anoka County, a lot of communities in Anoka County had double-digit tax increases, levy increases this year, and we kept an even keel on that. So I'd just like to, again, comment on the work that everyone's done, and I think we're in the right direction on this.
I get called aside at a business breakfast by a council member from another community, and he goes, "How did you guys do that? How did you keep it that low?"
It wasn't easy.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it's a little bit of that slow and steady. It's making sure that, you know that there's a big expenditure coming. We're planning for it. We're making sure that we can maintain the quality of our equipment, of our properties, and know that you can't just plan for it and say, hey, I need now $1 million today. that we're making sure that we've always got that money coming forward to be able to do the work that we need to do.
Because there's always surprises.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to have conservative budgeting and have a little extra money here and there when we need it and figure things out. And then I would also remind everybody that the Truth-In-Taxation, as was mentioned, we are only one line on that.
Yeah.
So if your taxes went up considerably, we're only one line.
Yeah.
And we'll be contacting our mortgage company in January and going, okay, we're going to start sending you a little extra escrow.
Yeah. Oh, and Mr. Mayor, one other piece that we always talk about at this time, because some people, I'm surprised we don't have anybody here tonight, but they come in and, because your property taxes are based on the value of your property. And in previous years, when the prices of housing were just skyrocketing, that had a direct impact to how your taxes got calculated, because it's a crazy formula, but it's the percentage of the taxes don't allocated to the type of property across the city, whether it's residential or commercial or multifamily. And so, multifamily had a higher increase, so that means most of our residents didn't see as high of an increase in their property values, which meant the taxes were lower. But if you are looking at the value of your home, and that is a concern, think about that about next April. And when you start to get those estimates in your mail come April, that's when you can look at challenging the value of your home, because what we do tonight was based on what we talked about back in April. So if you have an issue with what your house is valued, remember that, and you can talk about that next April.
One clarification is, if you have a concern with the value of your property, you can talk to our assessor anytime.
Very true.
April is when you actually make a public, that's your public opportunity to contest it to us.
Yep.
But normally wouldn't have to get to us if everybody talks to the assessor and says, hey, would you take a look at this?
Yes, and I'm sure they would love to talk to you in January or February versus everybody calling them in April.
Yes. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion on the tax levy or the budget for 2024? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes, and we can move on. All right, item 7 is to consider adoption of ordinance 2295 to establish the beekeeping permit fee. A couple council meetings ago, we passed an ordinance allowing folks to be able to apply and raise bees, and now we're actually putting in the permit fee. So we're looking to establish a one-time permit of $115 for applicants who wish to keep bees. This permit fee matches the fee set for keeping chickens. Staff believes the permit and inspection process for the bees will require a similar amount of staff time. Does anybody have any questions on the permit fee? Or Ms. Lensmeyer, is there anything that you wanted to offer, since you're kind of by default, you were the chicken woman, so.
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. No, nothing to add.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Rayrower?
This has come before us a few times. It's a process always of new ordinances. So we had our introduction, we had, and so on. And we've been working on this for multiple years now. We had a great pilot project and just put together a great ordinance with this. So I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2295, establishing a permit fee for beekeeping and authorize publication of the ordinance.
Second.
Motion by Rayrower and a second by Novak. Is there any further discussion on this?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Novak?
only to say that I greatly look forward to the honey that my wife will be making next year.
There you go.
Great.
Any further discussion?
And Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I was kind
Geisler?
of seeing some scout kind of eyes going, I wonder if there's a beekeeping badge.
You know there is somewhere. Gotta be. All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 8 is to consider adoption of the City of Coon Rapids Special Assessment Policy Update. Mr. Hammer, did you want to hit on the highlights of that one then?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, Council, this is a little bit of back and forth between us. It helps clarify some of the existing assessment language related to a mill and overlay. And it also introduced a full depth reclamation, which is similar to what we do on our reconstruction projects. This is just a much simpler version, and because of some of our older roads, it actually puts a 3-inch mat, which allows for future maintenance. So it's an additional improvement, which should be an accessible cost, and it's just rated at half of what a full assessment would be, similar to what a mill and overlay is. So we've clarified for you what full depth reclamation means. We've clarified under which conditions we would assess for a mill and overlay. And then Ms. Hanson also took a look through it just to see how the interest rates are calculated on our assessments, and there was an update proposed as part of that. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I actually had a question on the interest rate, and Ms. Hanson, maybe you can help me. I know the spread on most of them seems to be 1%. Housing improvement areas, 1%. But under easements, the interest rate on assessments will be, and we're going from 1 to 2% above we've lined out a lot of things, Bloomberg, BVAL, AAA municipal curve benchmark, whatever it is. Is there a reason that most of them are 1%, but this one is 2%?
So, Mr. Mayor, I ran our policy by our municipal advisor, Ellers. And so in consultation with them, the recommendations we have were the 2 changes that are in there. So the first one is changing to the Bloomberg BEVAL, because it's something that's not a private benchmark. So it's accessible by anyone. It's updated to the MSRB's website each day with historical data. So talking with Mr. Anhut, he said that's based on a national AAA, which is slightly lower than our peer Coon Rapids AA1 comparison, but felt like the 2% buffer would counter some of that difference. So it's to kind of just put it more in line with what our actual bond would be, and have that benchmark be more of a public benchmark. And then the secondary improvement was basically changing the language on that housing improvement, because any kind of activity related for that would not be tax exempt. So it would have to be a taxable financing, which carries higher interest rates. So that's why that 1% is it's different.
Okay. Just gonna nod my head.
No.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Mr. Brody, I know you hate when I just admit that honesty like that, but you know.
Nick Anhot says that.
Anybody have any questions on this or need any?
Yeah.
Councilmember Rayrower.
I just want to thank Mr. Himmer and all of our public work staff at always looking and researching and finding out the best ways to use our taxpayer dollars. And this reclamation, if I'm correct, is half the cost of reconstruction and can make the road last longer and put the full reconstruction out farther. You could correct me if I'm wrong. That's right. Okay. So I know we had talked about this at one of our work sessions, and it's just another option for us. And it's a way, again, to keep our streets in good repair and also constantly be thinking about the best use for our taxpayer dollars. So with that, I will make a motion to adopt the attached updated special assessment policy.
Second.
Motion by Rayrower and a second by Geisler. Is there further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you for all of your work on that. It looks like we got a Dakota show. Item 9 is to consider planning case 23-17, consider site plan and dimensional flexibility, retail center, 2825 Coon Rapids Boulevard. Dakota.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, I just have a couple of slides just to have some images in the background and just kind of touch on some of the highlights here. So the first site plan on the agenda is for the parcel at 2825 Coon Rapids Boulevard. It's currently zoned in our Port Campus Square District and in the River Rapids Overlay District. So there's kind of two actions here tonight for consideration. It's the site plan proposal itself, and so that's for a new 8,375 square foot multi-tenant retail center that would replace the existing gas station and detached car wash on the site. And then as well as taking action on two dimensional flexibility requests. One relates to the floor area ratio, or FAR, and the second relates to a local street setback. So here's just a kind of street view from Google, in case you're not familiar with the site, kind of how it exists today, kind of an old former gas station and detached car wash. So on the site plan, it's approximately 1 acre site, and as I mentioned, just a little over 8,000 square foot building. It would have, proposes 5 retail bays, kind of ranging from 1,400 square feet to 2,300 square feet each. The site would have 36 parking stalls, and then there is an amenity patio that would have some bike racks and then could be used for a future retail or restaurant tenant for any kind of outdoor furniture, again, kind of a nice amenity space. The site would utilize existing curb cuts and access drives on both Coon Rapids Boulevard as well as Crooked Lake Boulevard. I kind of noted in the staff report there was some comments during the public hearing kind of from the neighboring property owner that maybe had some concern about existing access, and with this proposal they wouldn't touch any of the access that's currently there with the gas station site, so no closing of driveways or anything there. And then there's also, they're proposing a sidewalk connection from the public sidewalk on Coon Rapids Boulevard to the building, kind of on this lower corner right here. It's a little hard to see on the map there. For their landscaping plan, they do meet the minimum standards for our street frontages and meet those requirements. And they are proposing stormwater ponding around along Crooked Lake Boulevard. And they're continuing to work with the Coon Creek Watershed District for those final approvals. So that's kind of the standard. Any kind of new site plan needs approval from the Watershed District. And we require that approval as the city before we would issue any building permits on the project. So they're continuing to work with that. You'll see there's a couple of conditions there just related to landscaping, and if they need additional stormwater, we're just wanting to ensure that they're still maintaining the minimum amount of landscaping on the plan. Typical kind of things that we're usually addressing kind of between site plan approval and building permit approval on a project. For the elevations, they are using a variety of colors and materials, including EFIS stucco and 2 different types of split-face architectural blocks. And those blocks would meet kind of our intent around that 30% kind of brick or stone requirement that we have in the overlay district for the facades. And then in addition, they have some accent materials, some metal awnings, and kind of a metal roof cap on the building. The other item I'll note typically in our overlay district is we have that 2-story expression requirement. So here you'll see kind of the second row of windows that'll have a slightly different window treatment to kind of, again, give that effect of a 2-story building. And the building itself is actually taller than the minimum we would require, again, to kind of give the impression of a taller 2-story building. So this is the west elevation, so what you would see from Crooked Lake Boulevard, and then the south elevation here, so this is what you would see from Coon Rapids Boulevard. We kind of talked about the flexibility findings a couple months ago with the use flexibility for the charter school, so I won't dwell on this too much, but again, there's kind of 4 criteria in our code that we're looking at for any kind of flexibility findings. So any unique site conditions or circumstances, ensuring a better integration or organization of uses, that they have any kind of amenities or buffers to offset any potential harmful effects of the project, and then does it further kind of further the intent of what we're going for in the port and overlay districts. So the first dimensional flexibility request is for floor area ratio, or FAR, and that's just taken by dividing the total floor area of a building by the total lot area. So these are just kind of some example images to visualize that floor area ratio. So if in this image on the example, if you had a 0.5 floor area ratio, here's your lot. You have a 1-story building that takes up half of the lot, that gives you 0.5. Or say they wanted a 2-story building, they could go to a maximum of a quarter of the lot, and that gives you that same 0.5 ratio. So in our port district, we guide any non-residential buildings to have an FAR of 0.6. And here with this site plan, they'd be proposing an FAR of 0.2. I noted in the site plan that for a lot of this size to reach that 0.6 FAR, it would require a 26,147 square foot building to meet that requirement. And so a building of that size on this lot would likely require other dimensional flexibilities to meet any setbacks, our minimum parking standards, and any open space requirements. And just again, as a further example, so a 26,000 square foot building would require 105 parking spaces, which is quite impossible to probably fit on that lot unless you were doing some kind of underground or garage. Parking just isn't all that common for a retail building of that size. And so, and then the commission and council have also approved other developments along the boulevard that have an FAR less than 6. Two examples are the Fresenius kidney dialysis clinic and the Quick Trip station next door have a lower FAR. So staff felt comfortable that with this proposal, it responds to those existing site conditions and kind of results in a development at a intensity that feels suitable for that site. And then the second dimensional flexibility is for a setback along Crooked Lake Boulevard. Our port district standards require a minimum setback of 10 feet and then actually a maximum setback of 20 feet from any collector or local street right-of-way. And so with this proposal, it would be just under 72 feet from Crooked Lake Boulevard. This is really in response to kind of the building floor plan and to ensure that they have adequate parking and circulation on the site. We actually worked with the applicant pretty early on in the process to try to explore, could you almost kind of flip this site plan and bring the building closer to the corner, and kind of working with them, it just seemed unlikely that they could then meet the minimum parking requirements and have kind of appropriate circulation on the site. So here again, staff felt this was kind of responding to some of the kind of the building design and the site as it exists. And then I did note too that while it is a little further back than what our code allows, it does bring the building actually a little bit closer to Crooked Lake Boulevard than the retail building just north of this site. So kind of with that, our staff recommendation is to approve the proposed site plan with the conditions listed in the packet, as well as approving the dimensional flexibility for the floor area ratio and building setback. And happy to answer any questions. And we have the applicant here as well if you have questions. So.
Councilmember Geisler?
So, Mr. Holt, I think the one main question, and you answered it a little bit with the reorientation of the building, because one of the main guiding principles of the overlay and the Boulevard Framework Plan was to bring buildings towards the street and put parking behind. And to me, I look at this and go, that parking's straight out front and totally goes against the entire intent of that district. You know, and so that's why there's that minimum and maximum setbacks. And I'm looking at the site and kind of trying to figure out where, you know, do I want to throw away one of the core tenets of the overlay district just because? So just put it on record that I'm not happy with the site plan at all.
Your Honor?
That it just doesn't fit with the intent of the, and we haven't talked about that in any of our comments of why we are not meeting the ordinance in that way and the reasons why we aren't doing it. That to me, I think, is a hole in what we have done here.
Councilmember Novak?
Thank you, Your Honor. This actually sits in my ward. It's one of the corners, and this has been a vacant lot for some time. I know that it would do the city well to be able to get this particular location functional and bringing money back into the city and helping the citizens again. I understand that there's a idea that for aesthetic reasons, we were designing for that particular area, but there's already a considerable number of retail spaces in that area that have parking spaces in front of them, maybe not directly on the boulevard, but directly along a service road. And so just looking at this, if we have a choice between this particular plot where there is parking along the boulevard and a vacant space with nothing there, or worse yet, a vacant space with a vacant building with nothing there, I'll take this.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
Yeah, I think Councilmember Novak misses the point. It's not against the concept of doing something with an empty lot or a disadvantaged lot. I'm all for that. What my challenge is to staff of why aren't we following the ordinance? Why aren't we discussing the elements of the ordinance and putting forth why we are going to say this is not something we're going to align to and why this site plan is better? Because I want to make sure that if we go for this plan, that we're looking at our ordinance and saying, are we going to throw that out of it? And if we're going to never follow it, let's relook at what that ordinance says that we should be doing if we're not going to ever hold anybody accountable to it, right? And I get that there are other parcels along the boulevard that have parking up front because they were done before the ordinance. And the whole point of this ordinance was as we were rebuilding, as we were refurbishing, as we were doing more things new on the boulevard, we wanted to pull the buildings forward, right? If we've abandoned that, let's just state that we've abandoned that, right? That's my frustration with this project.
Okay. I guess I'm satisfied that Mr. Crowell and the crew looked at trying to put the parking behind, and there wasn't a good way to do that. And I think this will be an attractive building in that corner. It's going to be very similar to the one on Round Lake Boulevard and Coon Rapids Boulevard, where the Subway and the Liberty and the fitness center is. And I think that's an attractive look, even with the cars between the building and Coon Rapids Boulevard. It went through the planning commission. It was approved. It was recommended 6-0 there. So I think the due diligence has been done on that, and maybe it'll be up to us to look and see how important it is for future projects. But I think with this one, I think they've got a good product here. I am curious to know what the eastern elevation is. Do you have a picture of the east elevation? And I guess I'm just curious because I'm wondering what's sticking out. There's still the service shop there that I think sits back further, and I want to make sure we don't have just a back of a building that you're looking at when you're coming down Coon Rapids Boulevard.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't have the other elevations in the slide deck, unfortunately, but I from what I can recall, it's pretty similar to that kind of lighter tan ephes and is a little bit more of a blank wall. I guess just looking at the neighboring sites, maybe I don't have a good image here. The kind of building to the north, I think is about 10 feet off of that property line or so. So I would imagine you won't really see much on that one elevation. But then I guess that kind of eastern elevation is a little bit more of a blank wall, but you have the kind of that Minnesota automotive building there that I think will help screen some of that. And then one of the conditions we had on the site plan was just to ensure that there was landscaping. It's not a terribly large area, but they do have kind of a sodded open space area along that building. And I think the intent on some extra landscaping there was to maybe help screen what is going to be a little bit more of a blank wall.
Yeah, because Councilmember Geisler had the eastern elevation on her thing.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I think it was in at least the plan sets on the attachment.
It's a blank wall.
It's a blank wall. It looks bad.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
if there was a way that they could do something to dress up that bay as it sticks out a little bit, because that's what you're going to see when you're coming down Coon Rapids Boulevard. I'm believe what you're going to be looking at based on where it's laid out here. Otherwise, I'm all in. I mean, I go back to when this was Louis' standard, and I brought plated dinners to my older brothers who worked there back in the 60s. So I'm very familiar with this corner.
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
One thing I would look, number 5, condition number 5, it just simply says additional landscaping be planted in the open areas located to the north and east of the building. And so I'd like it to be updated slightly so we understand that it's the landscaping over and above what is already on the plan, because it goes on to talk about if the required stormwater BMP plan along Coon Rapids Boulevard will impact the proposed landscaping plan, the applicant shall ensure the minimum street frontage landscaping will still be provided. I want to make sure that we're definitely clear that there is a landscape plan that's approved, and then there's a requirement for additional landscaping in the north and east. To kind of separate those two, because it's not real clear. The other question I have is, in watching the Planning Commission, the automotive site to the east.
West.
No, east.
East.
Minnesota.
Minnesota. That I don't know if we can put a condition on this to say that they have a cross-access easement, because that parcel uses the access from this parcel. And I want to make sure that there is at least some accommodation to what is are existing there today, even though it's not a written agreement, it's a handshake agreement. But that, if they say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore with this new layout, that business is going to be impacted because of the handshake agreement. So I'd like to see that get formalized. Mr. Attorney, is there a way that we can put in a requirement that they facilitate a cross-access agreement with their neighbor?
I mean, we can. I'm not as familiar with that access piece of it. This is the first that I've heard of it.
The automotive dealer was saying that there's, I think, oil delivered or something like that that comes on a semi, and because of the size of the truck, they can't use the backage road. They need to use some of the access from this parcel. And they were concerned with what was happening on this parcel, that their truck would still be able to get into their site because they have a cross access to get into their site.
And they say they have a cross-access now, but it's not memorialized in any type of agreement.
Correct.
And it's really just for that particular use?
Correct.
Is it sort of a private agreement then between these two parties? I mean, I know we're agreeing to allow this to change. I'm just kind of speaking out loud here.
Yeah, from what I understood from the Planning Commission, the Midwest Automotive, you can kind of see it way off to the right there, that they use that drive in that's on this parcel to get over to their property. And that they need to ensure that all of that access to get to their property for those deliveries remains.
I don't necessarily see that. I assume the developer is here tonight. If they're in agreement with that, for one, I mean, that would memorialize that deal. And if that's what the neighboring property wants or already feels that they have, and they may have, like I said, I can't speak on the legal, they may already have it, so to speak, because of their handshake deal, and they've been using it for long enough, but that's beyond my purview. But I don't know if there's a harm per se in allowing or requiring that, assuming especially if there's no objection from the developer.
Yeah, that was the one other thing. The other question I had is, Mr. Kroll, you had talked about the landscape plans in Coon Creek watershed, because this is still in the Mississippi Critical Corridor area, whatever, because I think it's still far enough in from the river, no?
No, it's not in the MRCCA district at all.
Okay.
No.
But does the Coon Creek watershed have to do an approval of the landscape plan?
They do, yep. So
Then-
in any kind of project anywhere in Coon Rapids that has more than like 10,000 square feet of land disturbance requires stormwater and approval from the watershed district.
And then would that be considered part of an engineering comment, or do we need another recommendation that says Coon Creek watershed approval?
Yeah, we typically, that is in the engineering comments, so we kind of typically use the engineering comment condition to address that. And again, it's something that every project really does between site plan approval and building permit approval. And our engineering department's not going to approve any building permit until we have an approved watershed district permit. This kind of
Okay.
standard practice for the staff. Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that was covered in our
Yep.
requirements.
In the engineering report, that's the first condition, that they get a permit from the watershed district.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Griscovi.
Kind of to that same point where she was going there with the watershed, can you point out where the stormwater basin location is going to be on this? To me, it looks like it's going to be right along, it's going to be right front and center, Crooked Lake Boulevard and our,
Crooked Lake Boulevard, or?
Yeah, yep,
well, it's
so
in
on
front
the,
of Crooked Lake Boulevard there, or?
yeah, on the site plan, it's kind of this dotted line is their proposed basin, so it is between basically the parking lot and the sidewalk along Crooked Lake Boulevard.
Do we see a lot of that? Because that, I just keep thinking in my mind the stormwater retention basins on Foley Boulevard after they've redone that. They're right up along the road, and they get overgrown. They don't look very attractive. I mean, I don't know how much landscaping you can do around that to keep it looking attractive.
Sure. Yeah, there's some examples. There's the Nystrom office building kind of near Mercy Hospital has kind of a similar basin closer to the street. Or the Red Mill building where Starbucks and Sleep Number are on that Wells Fargo site redevelopment. They have some stormwater ponding that I believe is closer to Main Street, so it's not uncommon. Kind of is just working with the applicant in the watershed district where it kind of makes sense on their site based on the site plan. So this isn't unusual for some development in Coon Rapids.
Yeah.
Councilmember Weaver?
Mr. Cole, do you have any more, Crowell, as to Councilmember Geisler's, comments and concerns? Do you have any more details you want to offer as to why the setback was important in this case specifically? I know you talked about parking and flow, just wondering if there was any more details you wanted to add.
Yeah, I don't know if I have too much comment beyond the staff report. That's kind of why we have the flexibility if a project can't meet a requirement to kind of work through it and see where it could be flexible. The retail uses are permitted in the Port District, and it really meets a lot of the other requirements. And I think just working with the applicant, we were trying to see if it could fit closer to the corner. I guess the flip side of that, or maybe a negative even of that design, is you're really probably going to see more of the back side of the building kind of facing the street, depending on how they would have designed kind of the doorway access or windows and things, so it wouldn't.
Right, I mean,
change,
the only
yeah.
way I'm looking at it is like you took the whole thing and it's over here. Well, then you're looking at the back side of both buildings rather than this way you're seeing the, trying to wave my arms around three-dimensionally, but you see the strip mall. So to me, it also makes sense as far as this project and the vacant lot, and this would be a nice upgrade from that. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I think Mr. Hammer had his hand up earlier.
Mr. Hammer, did you have your hand up?
Mr. Mayor, Council, I wanted to speak a little bit to Councilmember Griscoviac's concern, and it's something we've done on other developments where there might be a stormwater pond front and center, and it may be something the watershed comments on as we enter into a stormwater maintenance agreement with the property owner that, you remove trash monthly, you have the landscaping in good repair, you're removing, so if it's not in the engineering comments and that's something that interests you from an aesthetic standpoint, that is something we've done before, just a general, it has specific inspection timelines. It's not like we sit and watch over it all day long, but if it gets in disrepair, we can just certainly pull that out and say, we want to make sure you're following through on this plan.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
Thanks for those comments. I mean, I would like to see at least some type of manicured treatment. I mean, I know it's going to be a stormwater basin, but some kind of manicured lawn or landscaping right up along Crooked Lake Boulevard.
I don't know necessarily that I would look to a manicured appearance. I'd
Well, like
more of a
mowing lawns,
natural,
not
but,
just
I'm just
waist
trying
high
to
weeds.
avoid debris,
Yeah.
dirt, misgrown trees, that sort of a thing. So I think we should allow some flexibility in their landscape plan, but just make sure that it's taken care of. Because it's probably an area, you go manicured, now you got to irrigate it. You're irrigating the water right into the pond. It just doesn't make sense. So providing some flexibility with the landscape plan and then just some maintenance requirements and inspections, I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Novak?
I move that we approve the proposed site plan with the following conditions. 1, all engineering comments be addressed. 2, all sustainability comments be considered. 3, the applicant enter into a site security agreement with the city. 4, a right of entry agreement be established between the city and the property owner to provide city access to hydrants located outside the public right-of-way. 5, additional landscaping be planted in the open areas located in the north and east of the building. If the required stormwater BMP along Coon Rapids Boulevard will impact the proposed landscaping plan, the applicant shall ensure that a minimum street footage landscaping is still provided along Coon Rapids Boulevard. 6, the proposed trash enclosure comply with City Code 11-1205.1 and be constructed, point 4, excuse me, and be constructed of 3 sides with materials compatible with the building exterior, and the 4th side with a durable gate. 7, all signage is subject to separate sign permits.
And then, Mr. Brody, does he need to read in the next one, or you want to do that separately?
I think, I knew you were going to ask me that.
Yeah, I was thinking it would have
And
to
I
be
was
separate.
I was still thinking of the answer. I think in this case, let's take them separately.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Novak and a second by Rayrauer.
Mr. Mayor?
We have further discussion, Councilmember Geisler?
So are we not going to consider the issues with recommendation number 5 that can take landscaping out of its normal plan and put it up in the north and the east? That we don't have that clarity, and that we don't have a recommendation for the cross-access agreement for the neighboring business?
Your Honor?
Councilmember Novak?
It's my understanding that the agreement with the neighboring business is already considered to be a handshake agreement.
I'm not aware of any of those things. That's what I've been
It was a
told.
handshake agreement
I don't know
with the
whether it has
previous
any
owner.
legal value.
So, and originally, there was, both properties were owned by the same
same
person,
person.
so it
Yeah.
wasn't a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a question that somebody would like to answer, to make sure that there's still access to the Minnesota automotive?
I don't know if you have any comments. Okay, okay. But if you need to come to the mic.
Was when I started the work session.
My name is Lee. I'm an architect for this project. I'm representing my client, the owner of the gas station. As far as the agreement between the access points on the east side, my client intended not to close that property.
He tends to keep it open.
Keep it open.
So he would be okay formalizing that in an agreement?
And he also would like to say that if they open, what about the maintenance cost of, the big truck come through and in and out? And who's going, probably they can share the cost of the repair of the parking.
And that would be an agreement between the two businesses, would it not?
Yes.
It would, but it's not in our motion.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so that is what he's want to miss his, yeah, when he want to keep it open, but he want to mention about if we do that formally, he would like to have the shared maintenance cost for the driveway.
I'd accept a friendly amendment to add that language to the motion.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, the friendly amendment would be to add recommendation number 8 to require a cross-access agreement between this property and the neighboring property to the east. I think it's Midwest, or Minnesota Automotive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then whatever they want to put in that agreement is their agreement. Right? Because the concern is that if there isn't an agreement and this property owner says, wait a minute, your trucks are too heavy and too big, I'm not going to let you use it anymore, that business has a problem. It cannot operate. Right? So we want to be able to address that.
Okay, so technically, we should actually have a motion and a second on adding item 8.
That would be my suggestion.
Okay, so Councilmember Geisler,
I
was
will
that
make
your
a-
motion?
Yep, I'll make a motion to add recommendation number 8.
And Mr. Hammer has a question.
Okay, we have a motion by Geisler and a second
Mr. Mayor?
by, yes, Mr. Himmer.
I was trying to catch you. I still haven't heard whether that's a desire to add another condition for a stormwater maintenance agreement.
I don't think so.
No.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
Yeah, I think it's critical that if we're going to have the stormwater basin, right at the corner, it's going to be very visible. It's no different than the one that we've got at Coon Rapids Boulevard and Round Lake Boulevard in front of like where the subway and the boot camp is. And that collects garbage and crap, and there is no agreement there. And it would be nice to be able to keep this nice. And so maybe I make a second friendly motion to amend and add recommendation number 9, that we require a maintenance agreement for the retention pond.
Okay, so Mr. Himmer, does that satisfy that?
Yeah, I'm not recommending it. I was just,
But
it
does-
came up as a
does the-
question and I
does the
didn't
language
hear
make
it.
sense?
But it was your question.
And Your Honor?
I will second that.
Okay, all right, so are we all good with that, so adding 8 and 9?
I'd be more than happy to do that. I was just under the impression that that would be covered by number 1, the engineering comments.
No, those are already listed in another spot.
Okay.
Okay.
So can I have one motion that is points 8 and 9, so we can
Yeah.
just vote on it once?
Are you comfortable with that, Mayor, or you want to keep them separate? They were started out separately.
I think we would keep them separate.
and we
Okay.
should vote on
Yeah,
them
so
separately.
the motion we have is to add items 8 and 9 to the motion that's already on the floor. Is there any further discussion on that? Are you okay with that, Mr. Brody? Because we don't usually get this far into the weeds.
I think I'd rather keep, we had a motion 8 that added item 8. We seconded that motion.
Okay, so
I'd
you'd
rather
like
we
to go-
voted on that motion first.
Okay,
Then
and
we'll
then
vote
come
on the
back with
second,
9.
come on
Got
for
it.
number 9.
Okay, so we had a motion by Geisler and a second by Carlson to add item 8 to this. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so, you
And
want
then
to,
there's another motion for item 9, which is to have the stormwater maintenance agreement for the stormwater pond.
okay. So we have a motion by Geisler and a second by Carlson to add a number 9, dealing with the storm water retention pond language. Does any more discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so now we're back to our original motion and second, but now we've got 9 points on there, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Because we're good with that, right? Because we've added it to the motion. Okay.
So now the motion includes those.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second with 9 stipulations. Is there any further discussion on that? Councilmember Ray Rower.
I just want to say thank you to the council because I think after all of that discussion, we have a great motion here.
And Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
And I will say, I will support this with these motions, but I definitely want us to relook at our approach to items on the boulevard, and if we're going to be going away from, putting buildings up to the boulevard, and change our code and not hold anybody accountable to it if we're not going to do it.
Understandable. I think it's a good conversation. Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm pleased to have this project here. I'm okay with the parking, the design, and I do certainly respect Councilmember Geisler's, views on how we need to look at the ordinance, and I'd like to have further discussion on that. Not tonight, though, Mr. Mayor.
She's just voicing the rules,
Yes.
And so that makes sense to me. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you. Item 10 is to consider I'm sorry, we're going to go back to that one again now, because now we have to consider that second part. The dimensional flexibility for the floor area ratio.
Your Honor.
And the building
Ray
setback.
Rower, Mr. Crowell, did you have something before we move with this?
And the building setback, there's two in there, that motion. One motion for two flexibilities.
I wasn't going to read the whole thing. I was
No.
Councilmember Ray Rower.
For planning case 23-17, I make a motion to approve dimensional flexibility for floor area ratio and for a building setback, finding the modifications are necessary to respond to site conditions, result in better integration of uses or additional public amenities, and further the intent of the Port District.
Second.
Motion by Ray Rower and a second by Novak. Is there further discussion on this one? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 10 is to consider planning case 23-23, consider site plan and dimensional flexibility, Suite Senior Living Phase 1, 96th Avenue and Norway Street. Mr. Crowell.
All right, yeah, so our second site plan tonight, as you mentioned, is on the corner of 96th Ave and Norway Street. It'd actually be a new lot created to the next item on our agenda related to the preliminary and final plat for this site. So it's in our Port Evergreen zoning district and then also in the River Rapids overlay district. So very similar to the last case, you're kind of looking at two things. One is for the site plan for a 32-unit assisted living and memory care facility. And then two-dimensional flexibilities, one for parking and one for a building setback. Again, just kind of a little bit of a close-up on the site. We can talk about this a little bit more at the plat, but again, this existing office building and diversified adjustments and the existing parking lot would remain on its own lot. And then the assisted living and memory care facility would be on this kind of back portion, undeveloped portion of the lot. As it was noted, this is phase 1. So the site plan tonight is just for the first building, which is that 32-unit building. So it's kind of the eastern half of the site in the orange. And then they are proposing a future 40-unit building on the site as well. And that would go through a separate site plan process when they were ready to construct that building. So just kind of, again, talking about the site plan a little bit, it's about 2.9 acres. 32-unit building, 20 units would be assisted living and 12 would be memory care. Each unit is about 350 square feet intended for single occupancy. There's kind of communal spaces here, commercial kitchen, dining area, beauty shop. They have an outdoor patio area and sidewalks and kind of walking path around the site. And then 28 parking stalls here in this first phase. The landscape plan will also be completed kind of in phases. So phase 1 would really be to develop the landscaping as it's shown around building 1. And they don't really want to touch the other half of the site as much as possible. So the existing trees and things would kind of remain there in phase 1. And then in phase 2 at the second building, we see more tree removal and kind of the updated landscape plan here that you see. So for the whole entire site, they're looking at 101 trees and just under 300 shrubs kind of across the site there. Here's the floor plan, just to give you an idea. So you have the assisted living wing, and then the memory care wing that's kind of connected by that common dining and commercial kitchen and kind of those amenity areas in the building. Kind of the typical unit, whether it is memory care or assisted living, each would have its own bathroom facility. There's a small kitchenette and a TV, and then room kind of for a bed or any kind of furniture that residents would like to bring in the suite. Just looking at our rendering here, so this would be kind of looking north from 96th Ave, so Coon Rapids Boulevard is kind of in the background here, to give you an idea of what the site would look like after both phases. And again, what we're approving tonight is this building A on the east side. Kind of looking at the building materials, they're using a variety of materials and colors again, kind of LP smart siding, hard shingle panels, and then some stone wainscoting across the building to again meet that 30% Brooker stone requirement in the overlay district. For the two-story expression in this example, they'll be providing roof dormers on both buildings, again, to kind of give you that second story effect that we're going for. And then this is just kind of another image of the building here, kind of what you would see from Diversified Adjustment site a little bit and a little bit from Coon Rapids Boulevard. This would kind of be that outdoor patio area, lots of windows in the door that kind of opens up into the dining room and that kind of amenity area inside the building. We are looking at two dimensional flexibilities on the site as well. The first one is related to parking. Our code currently guides assisted living facilities to have 1.2 stalls per unit, and this proposal would have closer to 0.9 stalls. So in phase one, our code would say they need to provide 38 stalls. Here they're providing 28. Staff felt that this modification results in better integration of uses, in that constructing additional parking stalls would result in a reduction of open space and landscaping on the site. It is noted in the narrative on the project that individuals who are living in this facility do not drive and would not have vehicles with them, and so the parking is really just for staff and guests coming to the building. They did also in the narrative kind of provide an estimation that kind of on any one shift, they'd have 3 to 5 employees and 1 to 3 visitors. So again, kind of a range of 4 to 8 occupants per shift. The city approved a similar assisted living and memory care project earlier this year, and that was also at a parking ratio of 0.9 stalls per unit. And this actually kind of seems to align more with some market trends, and actually a lot of our neighboring cities have a much lower parking requirement than our code for assisted living.
Mr. Crowell, Norvell, is that the one on Main Street by Menards?
Yeah, yep, across the street from Menards, kind of next to Metro Storage, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and then I think those were the main items there. So again, kind of staff felt comfortable that this was a better integration of uses and other amenities on the site and kind of helps in further the intent of the Port District. Kind of similar to the last project, there is, again, flexibility for the setback. Again, we have a 10-foot minimum and a 20-foot maximum setback from a local street. And this project would be about 50 feet from 96th Ave. Here again, it's kind of in response to the design of the building floor plan in the second phase. And this helps provide a more logical parking and circulation on the site, that you can get that loop kind of in the middle. The proposed location of both buildings does provide a consistent building edge along Coon Rapids Boulevard, which is kind of part of the intent on some of these setbacks. So I think with that, you get a better kind of alignment along Coon Rapids Boulevard with this layout. And that additional space from 96th Ave would be used for better landscaping and privacy for residents and guests at the building. Just for some additional context, the existing office building that's just south of this location is about 150 feet from the right-of-way on 96th Ave. So this is significantly closer to the street than some buildings around it. And there's also just not a ton of buildings or development in this area. So kind of with that, again, the staff recommendation is to approve the site plan with the conditions noted in the packet, and then to approve the dimensional flexibility for parking in a building setback. And again, happy to answer any questions, and we have the applicant here as well.
Excellent. I think it's a beautiful project.
Absolutely.
And now I understand why the applicants kept looking at me just when I kept trying to get a response on the last project, and thinking that was their project. Yeah, no, I don't, I think it's beautiful, and I think this is very similar to what we've already approved, and it is down in the, on the boulevard, but they seem to have it situated well there.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you know, this
Councilmember Geisler?
this is more on the boulevard. It is, you know, it looks lovely. You know, the one thing that if you look at that overhead of the site, the only thing that we need to, yeah, let's see, no, that one, that we need to let our residents know, yes, they will have to cut down some trees to put up the building. They will be putting other trees back in. You know, I always see a lot of complaints. Coon Rapids hates trees. No, we do not hate trees, but we allow people who are property owners to actually build on their property, which means that some of those trees may have to come down. But overall, I think it's a great project, and with that, I would make a motion to approve planning case 2323, to approve the proposed site plan with the stated 11 conditions.
Second.
I have a motion by Geisler and a second by Rayrauer. Is there further discussion on this?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Rayrauer?
I just want to say this is a great project for Coon Rapids. Love that our developers are continuing to find spots for things that we need in the city, and this is something we need. I know there are a lot of places like this that have waiting lists, so I'm glad to see it come up and love the look of it. This is also very Coon Rapids to have a very home type of look rather than, you know, a big tall apartment building, so I'm just very pleased. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember, let's go with Councilmember Kraskowiak.
I'll just make a similar comment. I'm glad that you're bringing this project to our community. I know it's needed, especially memory care and assisted living. And this allows, you know, residents that have spent their whole life in Coon Rapids to stay in Coon Rapids, where a lot of their kids are and their friends and relatives. So I think the project looks good, and I'm happy to see that coming into our community.
Councilmember Novak?
Thank you, Your Honor. I was actually just going to make that exact same point. This really allows Coon Rapids residents to stay here. And this is a beautiful building. Thank you very much for putting this together.
Excellent. Any further discussion?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Rayrauer?
It says right on our screen, community strength for generations, and that's what this will provide.
So let's rake them over the coals when we're doing the split, though.
It's not always easy.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries, and then it looks like we've got a dimensional flexibility.
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember
In
Geisler.
planning case 2323, I make a motion to approve the dimensional flexibility for parking and building setback, finding the modifications are necessary to respond to site conditions and result in better integration of uses or additional public amenities and further intent of the Port District.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Rayrauer. Is there further discussion on this?
And Mr. Mayor, I think it's just totally rational that those in memory care and assisted living will not be driving and don't need parking spaces, so.
Yep. I'm actually just chuckling over here because I think Councilmember Novak went, I didn't have to read all of those points. I could have just said the 11, so the 8 stated points.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with it being in your first year
Yeah.
in the city council.
All right, on this one, though, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion is granted, or approved. Number 11, it's still the Mr. Crowell show.
Yeah.
Consider planning case 23-22, consider preliminary and final plat, Sweet Living of Coon Rapids, Hampton Companies, LLC.
All right. Yep, my last item tonight, really just hitting the highlights here. So it's a preliminary and final plat for the site that we just discussed, essentially kind of acting as a lot split, so diversified adjustments And the existing parking lot would be on Lot 1, which is just a little over 4 acres and kind of outlined in blue there. And then Lot 2 would be the Sweet Senior Living proposal that was just approved in the previous site plan. So this is just kind of showing that split, kind of overlaying it on the aerial if that's helpful to kind of see that split. It meets all of our requirements in the Port District zoning in terms of lot minimums. And then the park dedication fees were already collected when the original office building was constructed. And so kind of per our policy, we haven't requested additional park dedication on this lot. So staff would recommend approval of the preliminary plat and then adopting resolution 23-123 that grants the final plat approval for the project.
2323.
Yeah, or 23
Plan case
1.
22.
Yeah, lots of 23s in
Resolution
here.
Oh, resolutions, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of 23s and 22s. And
We've had lots of resolutions this year.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I'll make a motion in planning case 2322 to approve the preliminary plat and adopt resolution 23-123, granting final plat approval with the following condition that all engineering comments be addressed.
Second.
We have a motion by Geisler and a second by Carlson. Do we have further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler, or Gruskoviac?
Park dedication fee, can you just explain, did you say it's being waived?
No, it's not being waived. Sorry, maybe I misspoke on that. So it's not being waived, but because it was already collected on this property, we wouldn't collect it like we maybe have in other plats where there hasn't been development before.
When creating a new lot, how could it have already been collected on that lot? It's a brand-new lot.
It was collected when Diversified Adjustments was built on that lot. So, I don't know.
Don't we typically have park dedication with every new lot that we create? No, we don't?
I would have thought so.
I thought we did.
Okay.
But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
It's only when there's new, because if there's been development on that lot, then that first initial park dedication covers that entire parcel. And even though we're going to cut it in half, it's still, park dedication was paid at that full piece of land. So if it's a new piece of land where no development has been done, and we split that into 4, that's when you would have 4 park dedications. Because
So if you,
park dedication is paid concurrent with development, and so there's technically been development on this lot.
So if we were to put a new apartment building on this with 300 units, we would get no additional park fee for that?
Correct.
Really? Interesting. All right.
Unless diversified finance was never there, and it was an empty lot, then yes, you could.
Okay. Well, very good. Do you feel more edified?
I
feel short.
Dedication fee.
I feel short of the park dedication, but okay, I feel edified. All right. Is there further discussion on this? Gentlemen, you've sat here all evening. Is there anything you want to share with us?
Looking forward to being here.
Okay. Very good. We're looking forward to your project there. All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Item 12, Mr. Crowell, you want to handle this one too? Consider approval of the Anoka County SWAT JPA? Okay. Captain Jacobson, is this you?
That is me. So what's before you is consider the approval of a joint powers agreement with the Anoka County SWAT team. Currently, the SWAT team is made up of all members of the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. This is actually creating a multi-jurisdictional team. So they're taking members from other agencies, other police departments, and adding them to the team, kind of creating that multi-jurisdictional feel. We, in our 2024 budget, we did plan for adding up to two members of the Coon Rapids Police Department. Currently, we have 1 member who has been selected to join the team next year, if everything is approved. And they host tryouts, and the Sheriff's Office conducts the tryouts. And they make the selection on who we're putting forward to be on the team. Some of the things that we can get from this is training for our officers. The officers that we're putting on the team receive specialized training, and they can bring that training back to all of our officers. a better multi-jurisdictional communication, as well as career development, as Mr. Stemwettle stated earlier, and it's actually a decent recruiting tool as well.
Mr. Stemwettle, so the cost of this to us is 2 officers? Or what is the cost on this?
So I can talk about that
Captain
one.
Jacobson,
So
go ahead.
it's a part-time on-call position. They're called when they're needed. So each member we would pay $3,500 a year per member that we have. So currently we have 1. That covers equipment and training. And we've also budgeted for any possible additional overtime and training time that would come as a result of the callouts that would happen. So it's a part-time on-call type assignment.
So we will have up to 2 officers trained in this. They'll be on call. If there's an incident, even if they're off, they would still respond like a paid on-call firefighter or something?
Correct. Anywhere in the county or anywhere that's requesting assistance, they would be paged in to come in and help.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions of Captain Jacobson on this? Councilmember Carlson, our expert.
Deputy Chief Jacobson. Deputy Chief Jacobson. Yeah, so Deputy Chief, how many call-outs are there typically in a year in SWAT?
In a year for SWAT, I don't know the exact number, a handful. I can think of one we've had this year. And it's kind of one of those situations where it was in the middle of the night, and when we needed them, we wanted them there. So it's not an everyday or an every week type of incident. It's a higher priority type incident where we have barricaded people, possibly with hostages inside. Part of this team is also a negotiations team with specialized training in negotiations, crisis negotiations, and then they have the equipment where they can do that safely. So we've had one incident in Coon Rapids this year that I can think of where we've actually paged out the Anoka County SWAT team. There's other things that are more planned, such as search warrants, where they may assist with search warrants. However, there is a pretty strict criteria on when they'll actually be called out. The commanders of the SWAT team at the sheriff's office actually have a checklist, and if it doesn't meet that checklist, they won't page out the SWAT team.
I also like, Deputy Chief, the idea that our officer is going to gain all that experience, even if it's not in our community. And the more the merrier, because if you have a call out, you're certainly not going to be able to get everyone there. And to have them there to gain all that experience and all the training that we're getting for $3,500 a year per officer is fantastic. And Deputy Chief, we also talked about maybe they can share that information, correct, so that well-trained SWAT officer can share what they know with the other officers to maybe enhance their techniques for entry into a home or what have you?
Absolutely. That's part of the plan as well as for our officers that we have assigned to the team to bring that training back to the other officers at our in-house trainings we host 5 times a year and expand on the patrol level training with some of their specialized techniques that they get to learn.
Very good. All right, anybody else have any questions on this?
Your Honor?
Councilmember Novak?
Deputy Chief, just a quick short question. What is the size of the Anoka County SWAT team?
I can certainly find that information out for you. I don't know exactly how big their team is right now.
I was just thinking that because we would be contributing to with all of the other cities in the county, along with the county's own deputies, then that could be a fairly decent sized force.
And that was part of the reason that they wanted to expand it to other agencies was to create a bigger team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Excellent.
But it's just officers from those 7 communities that are part of this, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Councilmember Rayburn?
Thank you for the explanation, Deputy Chief. That's very helpful. I was a little confused at first. Now it makes perfect sense. I really appreciate the creation of this multi-jurisdictional team, and I think anytime we have more communication from department to department, it's just better all around for everyone, because then you're taking the best practices with you, and so I think that's great. Could this be the idea of Sheriff Wise, possibly?
It possibly could be, yes.
It wouldn't surprise me that this great idea would come from there, so thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember
Yeah,
Geisler?
to echo everything, it makes sense, we as a community, it doesn't make sense for us to have the Coon Rapids SWAT team. We don't have the incidents that we would need to respond to, and the cost to train everybody and all of that material and equipment just doesn't make sense from our city. But it does make sense that our city has people who are trained and understand that. And if we have the cooperation and work together with our partners in the county, you know, for this type of a service that is not used on a daily basis, it's the most cost-effective way to go, so.
Here, I thought somebody was going to roll it into the motion.
Okay.
Councilmember Griscoviac.
No, I'd like to discuss this a little bit more, because the way I understand it, the Anoka County Sheriff's Office already provides a SWAT team to all communities within Anoka County, right?
Correct.
So they're doing that today, and all those communities within Anoka County, they all communicate on the same data system because we're all part of JLAC. So I'm wondering, I mean, it sounds like are we just giving Anoka County a little bit of a, I mean, taking some Coon Rapids resources and moving it into Anoka County so Anoka County doesn't have the same resource? I'm just wondering if we've got this program already available to us,
Yeah.
and why would we do this, and why is it only 7 communities out of the way more than that?
22.
Yeah.
22, thank you.
Yeah.
Communities in Anoka County, those.
Well,
those are
I
questions.
think the rest of them don't actually have law enforcement.
Yeah.
They're
Well, that's true.
already
They're
contracted with the
served
sheriff's
by the
office,
sheriff's office.
I would
Okay.
imagine.
And Mr. Mayor, if we all recall, a few years ago, there was an incident with a warrant being executed by the Anoka County SWAT team.
Well, let's not start that again.
You know, so bad memories. But, you know, when you look at, you know, and I think when you think about what Chief Wise is trying to do, it is about the partnership. It is about our community law enforcement with our county law enforcement. And if our city law enforcement have an attachment to that SWAT team and our understanding of what's going on that SWAT team, that if by chance something has to happen in our community, they've already got those relationships. They've already got that partnership built between our police force and that SWAT team. And I think we're going to end up with better outcomes because of that partnership. So that is, I guess, where I would take this. And so with that, I will make a motion to approve the joint power agreement for the city's participation in the multi-jurisdictional SWAT team.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Carlson. Now, the only clarification, I don't think that was the SWAT team. I think that was their entry team. Wasn't that a different group that went into that house?
Warrant thing?
That warrant one?
It was Minneapolis's case, but it was Anoka County SWAT executing the warrant.
It was, okay, I thought it was a different group at Anoka County. Okay, very good. That's all I'm going to say about them. Done.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But it's in our mind.
Yeah, so we have a motion and we have a second. Is there further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
Or was it Novak? Did
That
someone?
was Carlson, too.
Carlson?
Both of you hit it at the same time.
You're going to call me first? Well, thank you.
Novak was quiet.
For once.
Yeah.
Question for the chief deputy. The other cities that will be part of this, Anoka, Blaine, Columbia Heights, Fridley, Ramsey, and Lino Lakes, have their councils voted on this, do you know? And will they?
All the councils will get the same joint powers agreement that's before our council today. I don't know the status of where the different agreements are.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Councilmember Carlson?
First of all, Anoka County has a very professional, very well-trained SWAT team.
Right.
And to have our officers, train, with them, I think it's fantastic. And also, anything multi-jurisdictional, it builds relationships between all of the agencies that are involved. It's very good. I think we've lost a lot of that over the years, Deputy Chief, training together with other agencies. I think it's great there. And I just think that the benefits that we'll gain from that $3,500 per officer for training that can be shared with the rest of our troops, I think it'll just be very beneficial to our police department and also a great potential recruitment tool.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Do we have further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are up to the open mic public comment portion of the meeting. Is anybody here to address council tonight for open mic? All right. I don't have any reports on previous open mics. In other business, I'd first like to say, I'm impressed that Scout is still here. Thanks for hanging in there with us. And now we're wrapping it up. We're in the other business portion, and now it's just when people have things they want to mention. Two things coming up Saturday, December 9th, this Saturday, up at, oh, you're jumping ahead though, just earlier than that in the day, at Riverdale is the Santa Fest, is that what it is?
Yes.
From noon to 4 up at Riverdale, they're having a big event for the holidays. And now go ahead and put the graphic up, Steve. Thank you. And then we have our own Coon Rapids tree lighting in the afternoon on Saturday the 9th, 3:30 to 6. Boulevard Plaza, right next to the Ice Center. Fun for the whole family. It doesn't look like we're going to have snow, and it is going to cool off that day, but 37 during the day, 20 at night, probably windy again. But it's bonfires, hot cocoa, cookies. Santa will come in the fire truck at 3:30. Yeah, no snow hills. The Coon Rapids High School Raven Street project will be there singing carols on the trailer. It's on the stage. It's a beautiful event. And at 5:30, there'll be a short countdown, and the lights will go on, and the fireworks will go off immediately after that at 5:30. Don't come at 5:33. It's over. But it's a beautiful event, and it's great because there's really no opportunity to spend money at it unless you want to contribute to the food shelf. There will be an opportunity to donate non-perishables or cash for the high school.
Cardinals with Compassion Fund.
Okay, yeah, which is lots of help up at the high school for anybody that needs it. It's going to be a great event, and yeah, otherwise, cookies, cocoa is free. The Nordic ski team is going to help us out, putting it out there. Santa will be there. They will be taking pictures. You can take your own pictures. So it's just a really nice event. Yeah, that's everything I got on that Saturday. Be there.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
And I may call in Mr. Himmer for this one. So tomorrow, on the 6th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Head Start ACCAP building, there's an open house about Highway 610. Mr. Himmer, do you want to provide all your great details on the open house?
Thank you, Councilmember Geisler. It is an open house style. There's no formal presentation. Boards will be there. Maps to mark up, questions to be answered. We do have access to an updated website that's on the city website. It's a story map specifically about this project and the long history that got us here. We will be showing kind of a different alternative that we've developed recently, along with the 50 others that have come over the last 10 years. I think we're finally getting to the end point, so we're hopeful that maybe this is the last stop before we can find some construction dollars to make it a reality. And if anyone has any questions out there, feel free to give me a call, check out the website. I'm happy to answer anything anyone has to do with this project.
Excellent. Is there anything else? I would encourage you, if we were very successful this year in the legislature, and we received our Adeline along Highway 10. So if you are at home and you have a card that's asking you to vote yes or no on a sound wall, please exercise that vote, because they're going to want at least 50% of those in before they make a decision. And you should honestly have a say. If you've got a card, you should be part of that decision. Other business to come before council?
Mr. Mayor, a couple other things. So it's probably going to be more of a watch this space, because all of the forms in for the house lighting contest, for the house for Christmas lighting, were due on Friday. And so we're going to be putting together a map So coming soon, I would think probably within this next week, there will be a map on the city website that will direct you to all of the different houses that registered their house. So there's static light displays or motion light displays. And so that will give you the best way to go around and check out all the great lights in the city, so do that. And then also through the December 13th, it's called the Season of Giving, and so there's a donation drive. So here at City Hall, you can bring in all different kinds of things. So there's things for the food shelf, Toys for Joy, Alexandra House, Granny's Closet. So there's a number of different collection sites. But if there's something that you would like to donate for the season, we'll be accepting things through December 13th.
Very good. Other business? Mr. Stemwell, anything?
Mayor, Council, I think you caught it all, so thank you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Geisler?
motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion by Geisler, second by Carlson to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned.